This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first community group meeting with NOAA in the Caribbean of 2025. We are so happy you've joined us this morning, whether it's 10:30 or 9:30 your time or wherever else you may be in the world. So thank you so much for joining. If this is your first community group meeting with NOAA in the Caribbean, welcome. We're really excited you are here. If you are not on our mailing list and someone shared this meeting link with you, I am going to send a form now that you can make sure your name is on our mailing list if you do not receive emails from us. That's a great way to stay in touch with our newsletters, relevant updates, announcements, but also these meetings that are every other month. Of course, if there's any topics you would like to share with our community group at any given time, stories for the newsletter, anything at all, you can always contact us at caribbeannews@noaa.gov, and I will put that email in the chat as well. That's the best way to get in touch with our executive team. So please, we are always here for suggestions. If you have a workshop you're hosting, we'd love to hear about that. One other announcement, we've mentioned it before and we're going to keep sharing more information as the date gets closer, but we have our Caribbean Annual Partners Meeting, and that will be the week of April 29th, and this will be in Puerto Rico. So more details to come. Make sure you're signed up on our mailing list so you can learn more about this, and you'll hear more about at our next community group meeting and newsletters and all of the above. And that brings me to our winter newsletter that came out this week. You should have received it on Wednesday. We have our newsletter in English, which is the first link I'm sending, and we also have our winter newsletter in Spanish. So we're really excited to be able to bring these newsletters to you, these stories, and this is where if you want to share a story with us using that Caribbean News email address is going to be the best way to make sure your stories are included. So with that, let's go ahead and start our presentation. So I'm really excited to introduce Ernesto Rodriguez, who's the meteorologist in charge for the NOAA National Weather Service Forecast Office in San Juan. And he's going to be talking about the 2024 hurricane season, and I will kick it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Ernesto.
Thank you, everyone, and happy to see a lot of colleagues. I'll be presenting for about 25-30 minutes the hurricane season summary and also a little bit about the collaborations that we do. So let me go ahead. I'll turn off the camera so you focus on the presentation. Obviously, our mission still provide the weather, the official weather, water, and climate information for all the Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And with that, obviously, it's part of our job. It's providing the forecast during tropical storm affecting the Northeast Caribbean region. When we analyze the forecast for 2024 hurricane season, the main points were that the sea surface temperatures were above normal, and because of La Nina, neutral to La Nina, we had a weak wind shear. That was the reasoning behind the forecast. And the numbers that the agency posted early in the season was, or before the season on late May, was 17 to 25 named storms. Hurricanes were 8 to 13. From those 4 to 7 major hurricanes, and we got 18, 11, and 5. I'll go in detail on those numbers. This is the graphic that summarizes the entire hurricane season. You can see our region in the Northeast Caribbean was affected only by one storm, Tropical Storm Ernesto, but however, Major Hurricane Beryl in early July also passed to our south, bringing high surf and very dangerous conditions for the Caribbean waters south of Puerto Rico and St. Croix. If we look at the climatology and the development per month, we only have one storm in June, two storms in July. In August, we got also two storms, kind of rare. Usually August is kind of active, similar to September. They are our peak hurricane month. However, September pick up the speed, giving us five hurricanes or tropical cyclones, as well as October. So the season have some lull in activity, but however, the numbers start increasing on September and October. And by November, as usual, we get a couple of storms or hurricanes, and one of them was Rafael at Cat 3 by then. If we look at the counts in terms of how compare that to the mean and also the record seasons, we can see that we go above normal in each one of the categories. However, in terms of ranking, none of them were in the top three. The closest one was the hurricane count was fourth, also tied with another hurricane season. Looking at the climatology with a bar chart, you can see in terms of name storm, we're not excessively high. However, in terms of hurricane and major hurricane was kind of high if we compare with other seasons. In terms of names, we use pretty much all the names except of three names, Tony, Valerie, and William, from the tropical cyclone names for 2024. Although our presentation today will be mainly focused on the Northeast Caribbean region, we need to mention that the continental US was affected by five hurricanes. Two of them were major hurricanes, Helene and Milton. Specifically, Helene produced a lot of flooding impacts in the Tennessee and North Carolina area. And Milton produced a lot of tornadoes affecting South Florida as was moving from the west coast of Florida into the east coast. Hurricane Beryl was a strong Category 5 hurricane, passing far south of Puerto Rico, but still some bands, external bands of the system, and also the wave associated with Beryl was affecting our coastlines. However, in terms of Beryl break the record of the stronger hurricane in the Atlantic Basin to be formed in terms of the earliest time in the season. So by July 2nd, Beryl become the first Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic. So it's not usual to see that intensity early in the season. So obviously the heat in the ocean was extreme. So the graphic that you're seeing now, it's the red line represent the sea surface temperatures along the main developed region from Africa all the way to the Caribbean. And you can see how the blue and red lines are way above the normal values that are the gray lines that are all the years from 1991 all the way to 2024. So if we zoom in the time that Hurricane Beryl developed in the main developed region and moved from the tropical Atlantic into the Caribbean, was basically a record of sea surface temperatures from that time. Now, if we look at Tropical Storm Ernesto, was close to our region between August 13 and August 15. mainly brushing the British Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands, specifically St. John and St. Thomas. Obviously, the system brings rain to our region and also wind. If we can see the wind field associated with it, this is wind scalerometer data from uh, from that time. So you can see the winds greater than 34 knots were spreading around our region, specifically that area between Fajardo, Culebra, Vieques, and the Virgin Islands. You can see the wind swap associated with tropical storm force winds and hurricane force winds in darker red. Uh, and to the right, the picture in the right, it's a picture derived from one of the low Earth orbiting satellite called Sentinel, and they have the capability of measuring the wind, surface wind, and give us a good information, a lot of good information in terms of the wind field and also a lot of detail in the wind field. Obviously, the season was active, as I mentioned before, but at times we have not only one hurricane affecting the basin. At times we have three or four affecting different areas. Luckily, when we have that activity very high in the basin, most of the time the systems were in the open Atlantic waters. If we measure or try to have an idea of the importance of the heat content in the ocean as the fuel for intensify those hurricanes, uh, we can look at this graphic generated by the uh, Climate Central people that give you an idea of if we have normal heat in the ocean, what will be the category of the hurricane, and looking at the excessive heat or record-breaking temperatures in the ocean, how that affect the category of the hurricanes this season and probably will be our normal in the future. So could be one category higher, even two categories higher for some of those storms that forms in the 2024 season. If the trend continues, obviously in terms of heat, ocean heat content, uh, that trend will continue the following years. This is the summary of all the weather and climate disaster that happened in 2024. And you can see many weather hazards happening in the states, but certainly the hurricanes, the five landfall hurricanes that happened in 2024 brought that amount of dollars very high. Uh, they're talking about near $200 billion in terms of money due to spent due to the weather and climate disaster last year. Uh, I need to mention that the most important part of the of our service is the interpretation and consultation of the data. We can have a very accurate forecast, but if we don't have conversation with decision makers at the municipality, state, or federal level, we will be missing the most important part of our service, and that is the reason why we're uh, using most of our time not only in our professional development as scientists, but also spending time outside of the office, building that relationship with our partners So they use the official information to make decisions. In the past, they use other weather outlets to make decisions. And in the States, there's a few examples that emergency managers use Weather Channel, AccuWeather, or other media outlets to make decisions. And obviously, with information changing very quickly during the hurricane season, we need to be with them, making those adjustments to the forecast and also providing that information to our partners so they can make decisions as the information change, and obviously try to enhance the local economy, but also the national economy through those decisions. And part of that is also helping the people in the preparedness part. And by the end of the day, we all want to save life and property. So one of that pie chart that I show you in the slide before, I will be going through some of the services that we provide. So you know that the Weather Service and NOAA provide all this information through the 6 line offices. We provide not only observations, but also a forecast for space weather, tropical weather, severe weather, tsunamis, and many other information. We all work together for that, to provide that data and also a forecast for the public to make decisions at the agency level, but all the way through the community level. Our another role is provide warnings and disseminate those warnings for the people to make actions, specifically when the rain already starts or the river sensors are showing that the river is elevated or going out on its banks. So that is the role of us, not only providing that forecast, but also alerting the people through the EIS and also the WIA, and sending that information through radio and television for the people to make action. But again, the most important part is consultation and interpretation. So that photo that you're seeing on the screen, it's the media workshop that we do twice a year to interact with the newspaper, radio, and TV meteorologists. And that way we have a unified message, especially during significant events. Obviously, during normal days like today, each agency and TV channel has the budget to buy the forecast for our private company. But during our media workshop, the intention is to have an agreement between all of us to have the official information disseminate in all the outlets, not only through us, but also in their outlets, so that people can save their life and their property with one message. We don't want to have that conflicting information, because if not, the people will not take action. Obviously, that goes from local emergency managers all the way to the governor, giving that the impact decision support services to the secretary of each department ahead of the press conference for them to ask questions and make all the preparedness for each one of the government agencies. Behind the scenes, prior to the press conference, we have a lot of coordination, not only with federal folks, but also with every level of the government. And obviously, this is the public press conference where you see the media asking questions and many other things. But there's a lot of things that happen in the back. But in the off season, like now, we try to have meetings with other agencies, and obviously coordinating with people that help us a lot in terms of providing observations during emergency, like USGS, that they have the network in the rivers along the Puerto Rico and also in some dry guts in the Virgin Islands, as well as uh, other efforts that are happening in Puerto Rico, or agencies like CARICUS, that they provide gliders and buoy observations in a daily basis for us to provide the weather and marine forecasts to our people that are using the our coast. And they transit across our area, like cruises or vessels that go through the passages such as the Mona Passage. So they go through the Panama Canal afterwards. Um, the last part of the presentation is talking a little bit about all the technology and the assets that the NOAA and other partners across the globe are providing for us to improve the forecast, but also to provide assistance in emergency response after the systems. So we talk a lot about the uh, preparedness prior to the event, but there's a lot of things that happen during and after the event that, thanks to our partners, we were able to provide additional information to everybody. So this is the part of the images derived from satellite, specifically high resolution satellite that we are using now on. This is the evolution of the wind field of Hurricane Kirk. And you can see how in different snapshots, you can see how that wind field obviously is asymmetric in terms of the max wind, but also how that max wind is changing along that wind field, affecting different areas, because most of the people are focused in the center of the storm, but in reality it's a broad area of showers and thunderstorm accompanied by strong winds. And it's very important for us, especially if the system will move into our region, that we understand the wind field and know where that max winds are in case of we lose the radar, as similar to what happened with Hurricane Maria. We need to use other resources, and resources like this will help us to continue provide those extreme wind warnings to alert the people the strongest wind, where that is affecting different municipalities in Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands. It's amazing how the satellite has improved in the last 10 years. You even can see the white caps in the middle of the eye. So it's super impressive to see the detail in the imagery, and also zooming in and see the roughness of the sea surface and even the white caps inside. This is not a picture coming out from the hurricane hunters. This is a picture provided by a high resolution, low Earth orbiting satellite. Obviously, those satellites are scanning the Earth. It's not real-time data. That we have some lack of data, but obviously having this information improve a lot what we do in a situation such as a tropical cyclone or hurricane affecting our region. There's a lot of coming. Now we're talking with our line offices that are in charge of developing the next generation of satellite. And this is a lot of sensors that are currently developed in the development to help us not only in the air quality forecast, smoke, aviation hazard, etc., but also in the hurricane forecasting too. As well as the ocean and atmospheric research labs that will obviously be very uh, engaged with this technology to improve the algorithms and develop new products coming out from satellite for uh, ocean color, sargassum, and many other things that we, as of now, we're doing, but obviously will be improving in terms of the data quality and the high resolution coming out from these sensors. It's one NOAA, so obviously Hurricane Hunter are flying the system, but at the same time, Caracus and AOML are piloting the gliders, and we have AOML also and some contractor in California uh, piloting the cell drones and many other sensors to get all the information needed to improve that interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere, to improve that intensity forecast that is super important, especially near the coastlines. That we have been seeing that most of the intensification of the hurricanes are close to the shore, so it's less time for the people to prepare, especially if the system is changing intensity as approach the coastline. And through the research and through the observations provided by all NOAA assets, uh, we have been seeing that the rapid intensification usually occur 18 hours before landfall. So this information is critical for providing that detail of information to our constituents and also the decision makers. This season, they test in several Hurricane Hunter fly the drone on main aerial systems such as the Altitus. So we are getting that data, not only a drop zone, that it's the primary instrument that the Hurricane Hunter does, but also they will be able to glide through the system and provide more information than before. And basically that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that will go through the chat or live, whatever you have for me. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Ernesto. This was great. It's great to see how you're collaborating with other line offices in NOAA and also with other agencies. We do have two questions for you in the chat. And the first one is, do you know if there is analysis for billion-dollar disasters, specifically in the U.S. Caribbean, similar to the map graphic that you shared with the continental U.S.?
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this year, none of the systems in terms of hurricanes affect our region, but usually when we got a hurricane affecting our region, they include Puerto Rico in the bottom right side of the graphic. So if we look at 2017 and 2022, you can see that they talk about the system that make landfall in Puerto Rico, such as Irma, Maria, and Fiona in 2017 and 2022.
Awesome.
The summary, I mean, in a nutshell, yes, they include us usually during hurricanes, not necessarily when we have droughts or any other, because it's in small scale. But if we got landfall, we're included.
Okay, and Aira is sharing some information with us on the chat too, a link that we added to the notes as well. We do have a second question for you from Brad, and is there any research ongoing or planned to try to minimize hurricane development?
Wow, that question is kind of. I think there's some people that are trying to do that, but most of the research that I have been reading, it's very large scale. Large scale. The hurricanes are large scale, and it's very difficult to cool off water, the ocean water or sea surface temperatures, or putting something in the sky to inhibit the amount of thunderstorms or the showers in those systems, such as tropical cyclones. So there has been some people are trying to do that, but at least that what is out in the research paper, it's super difficult because it's large scale.
Thank you, Ernesto. We have time for one more question if there's anybody from the that can raise their hands too. I have a comment from Helena, but hurricanes cool the ocean. So if we suppress hurricanes, we may interfere with ocean cooling too. So
Yeah, so
anything,
in reality, we need a lot of major hurricanes to start cooling off the ocean, to increase the mixing in the ocean and bring some of the deeper water cooler into the surface of the ocean. But meanwhile, there is that area, the path of the hurricane is kind of small if we compare the broad uh, ocean and how the ocean has been warming lately. So sadly, the solution is having a lot of major hurricanes passing by and cooling the ocean, but also that bring another risk to our region, especially in the Caribbean. That is super affected, and the states now lately with the Gulf of Mexico and Florida Peninsula affecting by hurricanes every year or so.
awesome. Thank you, Ernesto. Ernesto, we invite you to stay with us just in case some more questions come up. But now we're going to pass to our next second presentation of the day. And it's our beloved Dami. She has been a year with us on the NOAA and the Caribbean Executive team and doing all these great webinars and newsletter, but she needs to move on, and we're pretty sad about that. But I know that she's gonna keep coming to our meetings, hopefully. So I'm going to pass it to Dami, who's going to be presenting on the different opportunities for students and also summarizing her year as a Canals Fellow. Thank you, Dami.
Thank you so much, Yaditza. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm really excited to take this opportunity to talk about NOAA student opportunities. And Yaditza first asked me to give this presentation and talk about what I've done in the past year as a Canals Fellow. And I'll explain what that title means and what that experience looks like. But I wanted to also open it up and use kind of my experience to date to talk about various opportunities within NOAA, because I've been really fortunate to participate in quite a few NOAA opportunities. So if you know of students that you think would like to learn more about this, we will share this recording after the meeting today, and really encourage you to share that with students and teachers and professors, anyone you know that would be interested. So with that, I'm going to give you just a quick timeline, because this will kind of set the presentation, how I proceed talking about student opportunities. So I first started working with NOAA as a volunteer researcher. I was at Duke University, out at the Marine Lab in Beaufort, North Carolina, and we share this island with a NOAA office there. And I started working as a volunteer on an artificial reef project, and I've been collaborating with them since 2018. I started as a team member on a project and ended up being team lead. I did not have a formal affiliation, but everyone at NOAA is always so excited to involve students and bring people into the work that I found the project I was interested in, and was fortunate enough to be, trusted and a formal team member. So my career with NOAA kind of started there as a volunteer. I then did the NOAA Hollings internship, which I will talk about shortly. And I went to Saipan in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands and worked on a project there. That was my first formal NOAA title. I graduated from Duke University in 2020 with a BS in biology and environmental science. Because of the connections I made while I was in Saipan doing the Hollings internship, I found myself back in Micronesia again at the University of Guam, where I was working on my master's. Before I graduated, I was fortunate to be a part of the Ecological Society of America Catherine S. McCarter Graduate Student Policy cohort. So this is an opportunity that in normal years prior to COVID, the Ecological Society of America would bring students to the Hill and kind of have their first experience lobbying, or, you know, what does it look like? What does that intersection of science and policy look like? So I really wanted to understand that side of things. I've done hands-on ecology, hands-on, restoration and field work. It was really an opportunity to kind of see the other side. And so I graduated from the University of Guam this past year in 2024, and that is when I started the Canals Fellowship. So I'll start off with kind of that's my timeline, and we're going to use that timeline as a way to talk about various NOAA opportunities. And this is by no means a comprehensive overview because NOAA has many, many different opportunities. And to find out more about student opportunities, I want to highlight this database. The link here is at the bottom, but you can also scan the QR code if you want to find this online. You can also Google NOAA student opportunities, and we'll be sure to share this link afterwards. But this is a database that you can access, and it has all NOAA-based internships, whether it's sponsored within a NOAA office. You can find both of the opportunities I've talked about thus far, but also opportunities hosted at different universities or different labs that are funded with NOAA funds. So this is a wonderful, wonderful resource to constantly refer back to. I send this to any student I ever talk to. There's always more opportunities popping up on this database. So this is a great resource to have on hand and check in with. So my NOAA career started formally with the Hollings internship. It's the Ernest F. Hollings Undergraduate Scholarship Program. So in the name, it is for undergraduate students, and this essentially provides, it's a 2-year scholarship. So you have academic assistance up to $9,500 a year for 2 years, and it includes a 10-week full-time paid internship at a NOAA facility. So once you're in the program, and I'll talk about what the application process looks like, once you're in that program, you can go to any NOAA facility, really anywhere. There's a database similar to the one I just showed you, but for Hollings scholars, where you get to see the project and the location and go anywhere. I had a lot of friends that worked in Hawaii, in Alaska, in Beaufort, North Carolina. I happened to go all the way to Saipan. So I encourage you to check out this link here at the bottom. Again, the QR code will bring you to the website. What does this look like? So timeline wise, you apply as an undergraduate student during your sophomore year. The application opens in September and it closes in January. And there are a few requirements. You have to be enrolled at an accredited college or university in the US or US territories. You have to have a minimum 3.0 GPA. And you have to have a declared major in any really environmental science. I have them listed here: oceanic, environmental, biology, atmospheric, math, engineering, anything that's kind of on the quantitative side of things in an environmental field. And this is a wonderful opportunity to have a paid internship and really kind of start to gain that NOAA experience. And through this internship, you also receive something called the Direct Hire Authority, or there's another name for it in the Hollings. They recently changed, but it allows you to have an easier way to get into a NOAA job afterwards. It helps you through the USA Jobs process. And I'm happy to go into more detail about that, but that could be a separate presentation in and of itself. So I want to kind of give you an idea of what that summer looked like for me. So I went to Saipan. I never even heard of Saipan. I had no idea where on the globe I was going, but I was really excited. And I was working with a striped eel catfish, which is the species you see here on the top left, a really, really beautiful, strange looking fish. It's a saltwater catfish. It's called an eel because you can kind of see in the picture here, it's an eel-like tail on it, and it's an invasive species. And the majority of Saipan is made up of this lagoon on the east side of the island. And we start seeing them everywhere. No one really knew when they showed up, why they showed up, anything about the habitat. So my project started as a social project. I was interviewing fishermen. I was interviewing, uh, you know, snorkel company owners. I was interviewing captains. When did you first start seeing these fish? Where? Where do you see them now? Just getting some background. And so I started surveying a lagoon. I walked the shoreline day, night, you name it. I snorkeled, I paddleboarded, just looking for these fish, and was able to build a habitat map and talk to the community, writing articles, going on the radio, giving presentations at community group meetings similar to this, talking about this species because a lot of people were scared of them and they are poisonous. So trying to reduce the fear surrounding them and explain, what was their role in the environment? What impact did they have? Did they have any impact? And as a part of this internship, you're able to come back to Silver Spring in Maryland, which is the NOAA headquarters, and present this research. The person you see here in the middle of the screen was my colleague that was out in Saipan with me working on another project together. So you can really go to any NOAA facility. It's a wonderful opportunity to dive into a project. There's people that were building lesson plans. There's people doing genetics. It really runs the entire spectrum of environmental research, and really everything that NOAA does, you can get involved in. So a wonderful opportunity for undergrads, and certainly not the only one. There are lots more, but one that I'm able to talk to personally. Which now brings me to my current role, the NOAA Sea Grant John A. Knaus Marine Policy Fellowship. So this is an opportunity that is directed towards graduate students, and it's an opportunity to give students who have an interest in the ocean, coastal, and Great Lakes resources to allow them to have experience in policy. And what it does is it matches qualified graduate students with hosts in the legislative and executive branches of government, and you're based in Washington, D.C., and you have a year-long paid fellowship. So again, you can access the link here on the bottom, and I believe Yaditza is sending the links now. Thank you for doing that. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline. This one's a bit more complicated than the Hollings. It takes about a year, just over a year actually, for the whole application process. So if you're interested in being a fellow in 2026, the application is due to your state Sea Grant program on February 19th of this year. So you start in February, and you have to apply to your local Sea Grant first. Contact your local Sea Grant early, start working with them, make sure they know who you are and what the process looks like, and you can really start to troubleshoot anything with the application there. Your local Sea Grant will decide from all of the applicants they receive whether or not to put you forward to the National Sea Grant. Then there's a process at the National Sea Grant level where they choose the finalists, and you're notified midsummer 2025. Now you know you're a Knaus Fellow, you can't tell anyone yet, and the process begins. So a little bit about the application. You have to submit a CV. It's not to exceed 2 pages. There is a personal education and career development statement, which involves 3 components. There is an icebreaker section. There's 2 prompts, max 25 words. There's a career path and objectives portion as well, 2 prompts, 750 words, and then a career path experience. You also then have to submit a statement about your relevant coursework and your future plans. And then there's also 2 letters of recommendation. And this is not the same every year. This does change year to year, but this is the general format the Knaus Fellowship uses year after year. For the requirements, there's no citizenship requirement, but you have to have a graduate degree. This can be a master's, this can be a PhD, JD, etc. As long as you are in a graduate program, you can apply to this fellowship. And it has to be awarded through an accredited institution of higher education, again, in the US or US territories. So if you go the legislative route, you will work on the Hill in a senator's office, a representative's office, in a committee, and you can go through that experience. I am an executive fellow. For an executive fellow, you go through this placement week where you have the opportunity to interview with a number of federal agencies. With NOAA, that's definitely the most popular one. We have the most offerings within NOAA, and you can work in any of the line offices. You can work in fisheries, Weather Service, National Ocean Service, any number of our line offices. But there's also opportunities to work with EPA, Department of the Interior, Oceanographer of the Navy, NASA, Coast Guard, White House, FEMA, you name it. Really, there are opportunities in all sorts of federal agencies that are based here in Washington, D.C. So that's kind of a broad overview of the Knauss Fellowship, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions about it. But to give you an idea of what this actually looks like, I'm going to go through my experience and kind of the highlights over the past year as my fellowship comes to an end here at the end of January. So, in my role as a Knauss Fellow, I am placed with the Office of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs within NOAA, also referred to as OLIA or OLIA. You'll hear me probably refer to it in all of those different ways over the next few minutes here. And in this office, we essentially serve as NOAA's liaison to all of Congress. So I sit in the middle between Congress and NOAA, and anytime Congress has a question that involves NOAA, they come to us and we're able to work with the rest of the agency. And vice versa, if we want to share information proactively with the Hill, it comes through our office. So we sit in a really unique position. And from the Knauss perspective, I'm as close to a legislative fellow as I can get while still being on the executive side. And the reason I was interested in this office, I really wanted to understand what happens to science at the highest levels of policy and how is it interpreted? What happens when we're talking policy? What is the best way to communicate science? What matters? And what does or does not happen when we're in these conversations? So completely outside my comfort zone, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's something that's beautiful about the Knauss Fellowship is it's an opportunity to do something completely different for a year. So my portfolio, I was fortunate to work on NOAA fisheries, and I was a representative for fisheries in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Great Lakes. So any congressional office in that region, if they had a question about fisheries, they had to come to me, and I'm able to work with the rest of NOAA to answer those questions. I also worked with the Office of Education, the Arctic Action Team, the Regional Collaboration Network, and of course, within the Regional Collaboration Network, I am honored and so fortunate to serve as the Executive Secretariat for NOAA in the Caribbean. And that's why I'm here today. So, what does this all look like? There's no day looks the same. Any given day, I could be on the Hill providing congressional briefings. I could be helping plan site visits for congressional members to visit our NOAA facilities. Could be helping prep for congressional hearings and testimonies, helping NOAA witnesses write their testimony, prepare to be questioned on issues related to our work. Taskers, meaning just any sort of question from the Hill, we're here to answer them and make sure they end up with the right people and we can get the best possible answer in a timely manner. I work a lot with budget. We do a lot of outreach because NOAA does so much amazing work. We want to highlight that. And so making sure we send all of the amazing stories, new developments to the Hill so that information can get to these members' constituents and to the American public. That involves rollouts of all these various stories, and there's also a lot of opportunities for professional development. And I'm really fortunate, a lot of my colleagues in the Knauss program are based in Silver Spring, Maryland. I mentioned that is the NOAA headquarters. I am based at the Department of Commerce building, so I am right downtown in the middle of everything. I'm right next to the White House and the Washington Monument, and you can see my building here that I'm fortunate to work in. It's the Herbert Hoover building. So let's move on. And at this point, this all sounds great and a little confusing, and it took me a while to figure out what all of these things meant. So I'm going to take you through each part of my portfolio and just give you a taste or a highlight from my year, some of my favorite things I was able to work on. So with fisheries, I spent a lot of time on the Hill. There were weeks where I was on the Hill 3 times a week. It could be really, really busy at times, and it could also be quiet at times. One of the first things I did in this office, I worked with this gentleman you see here on the left. His name is Clay Porch. He is the director of the Southeast Fisheries Science Center, and he was asked to testify at a House Natural Resources, Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries Subcommittee congressional hearing. And I was able to work with our team to prep Clay and help write his testimony and prepare him to testify in front of Congress on various bills related to NOAA equities. This one happened to be a red snapper piece of legislation and one involving artificial reefs. We were invited to testify, and we brought Clay to the Hill. We also do a lot of outreach, as I mentioned. So on the photo here on the right, you can see leadership from the Northeast Fisheries Division, people who represent that region, bringing them to the Hill to talk to some of our NOAA champions in that region and talk about the amazing work we are doing. That group there, I put them through about 20 meetings over the course of 2 days. So lots of running back and forth and running through the tunnels to get to all of our meetings. With the Office of Education, another one of the NOAA opportunities is through the Educational Partnership Program with Minority Serving Institutions, or EPP-MSI. They have a similar program to the Hollings Scholarship, same kind of concept there. I encourage you to look that up on the student database. But through the EPP MSI program, we have cooperative science centers, and I was able to bring the directors of all the science centers that you see here to the Hill, and again, run them all over the Hill over a course of a week, getting them in front of their congressional representatives to talk about the amazing work happening in their districts. The science center is located in your city. Let me tell you about the amazing work we have going on here. We have constituents from your region coming to the Hill, and talk about their experience and what are your students doing. It's a really wonderful way to highlight that work and talk about everything that these center directors and their students are achieving through the program. Through the NOAA Young Changemaker opportunity, this is something that is for high school students. Again, encourage you to look at the opportunity database that I shared earlier. I can't speak exactly to the application process, but it happens once a year. There's a cohort of high school students that are able to work with NOAA scientists wherever they live to work on a project and basically be mentored by NOAA leadership and scientists. They came to the Hill to meet with their congressional members. They met with our NOAA administrator, Dr. Spinrad, to talk about what matters where they're from and the projects that they're working on. I was able to bring them to the Hill covering the Office of Education, and also was fortunate enough to sit on a career panel and share my experience. So something I highly recommend you share with your high school students and anyone you know. With the Regional Collaboration Network, I was fortunate to travel to Phoenix, Arizona and participate in the annual workshop, meeting all of our teams. Of course, given my connection with NOAA in the Caribbean, I'm really closely connected and collaborate with the Southeastern Caribbean regional team. Catherine Egan is on the call here. She's the regional coordinator, of course, for CCART. And I was able to present at their team meeting in Key West and talk about all the work we're doing here with NOAA in the Caribbean and get ideas for how to improve and what more can we do with this group. With the Great Lakes team, I was able to participate in Great Lakes Days and bring their team, again, dragging them to about 20 meetings all across the Hill, talking about all of their work. Another wonderful group. With NOAA in the Caribbean, probably my favorite part of the portfolio. So thank you, all of you, for being a part of my fellowship. Of course, we had our annual partners meeting, the 2024 meeting that was focused on restoration. Something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm a coral ecologist focused in coral restoration. So being able to bring experts in this field, when we talked about mangrove restoration, we talked about sand dune restoration, estuary corals, it was something that I was really passionate about, really excited to have that conversation with this group. And I think it was really well received, and I hope we can continue that conversation. We worked on our newsletters. You all just received the latest newsletter, and I will be sure to share those links again. Just earlier in the chat we did for the winter newsletter. We send 4 newsletters a year trying to highlight resources, job opportunities, updates in the region. So it's something that we're really proud to produce, and it's something that we really love doing. And of course, our upcoming events, I talked about at the beginning of the meeting, but really excited to have been a part of the planning for the upcoming annual partners meeting. Again, that's going to be in person, finally, in Puerto Rico. More details to come, of course, but really there's some exciting things planned, and I look forward to all of you hopefully being able to participate and join us in person. Now, this is not part of my portfolio, but something that I'm really proud of that I was able to work on and lead in my office. So we had something called NOAA Day on the Hill, which is essentially, I'd describe it as a science fair or career day, or if when you were in college, trying to figure out which club to join, something like that. Basically, we brought all of NOAA's line offices and all of their really cool gadgets and toys and VR headsets. We had an interactive sandbox to the Hill to highlight all the amazing work we are doing. We had about 8 different members come and speak on behalf of NOAA and how NOAA is helping, their district with weather forecasts, with buoy data, all of the above, and really talk about the great work we're doing in the region and just provide more engagement. It was an opportunity for our NOAA employees to interact with congressional members and staff and vice versa. In this photo here on the left, you can see Ben Friedman, NOAA's Deputy Undersecretary for Operations, speaking to congressional members and staff. And something that I was in charge of leading and coordinating was bringing this science on a sphere to the Hill and working with Capitol Police and security and all sorts of different loops to jump through and hoops and everything to bring something like this to the Hill, a really unique way to display all this data that we're collecting and make it a really interactive format for everyone in the room. And of course, the cute fluff ball that you see there is Ember, NOAA's official canine ambassador. She was certainly a hit and quite honestly probably the most popular thing we had on the Hill. I couldn't have done it without this amazing team here that you see in the photo from our office, and something I'm really honored. Through this work and this coordination, I was recognized as NOAA Team Member of the Month, and just truly an honor to have been a part of this and trusted to lead such an event. But that's all of the work. The Canals Fellowship, you have a separate pot of money set aside for professional development. That is the main priority of the fellowship. In this opportunity, I was able to shadow our NOAA administrator, Dr. Spinrad, you see here in the top left. I was able to present on Science at a Sphere at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. You see that on the right, and talk about climate change and how it's impacting our coral reefs and what can we do in our daily lives to help minimize our impact. I mentioned there's fellows across all different agencies. I was able to tour the White House in the bottom corner, and on the top you see a photo from touring the Pentagon. We were able to all, experience each other's different fellowship experiences, because my fellowship is certainly different than someone in the Pentagon or the White House or even a different part of NOAA. They're all wildly different experiences. I was able to travel. I went to State of the Science workshop focused on offshore wind in New York. I traveled to Hawaii for the American Fisheries Society conference. And I also participated in a lot of trainings from a local network, the Women's Aquatic Network, that has trainings for USA Jobs, how to negotiate your budget, how to create the best LinkedIn account you possibly can. It's really, once you're here, the network of alumni runs deep. There are quite a few Knaus Fellows on this call, actually, to include Catherine and a few others. So, once you're in the network, everyone's there to support you. And you can just find endless opportunities. And to be honest, it's kind of a golden ticket. A lot of people, when you're here and you say, I'm a Knaus Fellow, I'd love to learn, everyone wants to help you. So I cannot emphasize enough how amazing of an opportunity the Knaus Fellowship is. And I just wish it would last longer than a year. It's simply not long enough. That's just a little bit of the highlight from my year, but I wanted to highlight some faces that you might know, some people from the Caribbean who were Knaus Fellows in years past. So I want to focus on Jocelyn Garcia. This is kind of a long quote here, so I'm not going to make you read the whole thing. I'm going to pull out a few critical components. So Jocelyn was drawn to this opportunity because, similarly, she wanted to see how science is used in policymaking. The exact reason I wanted to do the fellowship, and it's oftentimes the main driver for why people want to come into the Knaus Fellowship. She wanted a completely new experience, so she was working with the Marine Mammal Commission. And when she applied, she was finishing her master's degree in biological oceanography from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, and was looking for this kind of entry level position, right? I mentioned this is an opportunity to get into the federal workforce. And this is a great way to do that. She had the opportunity to meet people from different agencies and gain experience in inter and intra agency collaboration, creating professional relationships. You'll meet so many people that your network just explodes over the course of a year. And it really is a wonderful opportunity. She wanted to learn what is important to leadership and how to create and facilitate professional relationships. Through this experience, she is now currently serving as the Policy Program Manager for NOAA's Office of Marine and Aviation Operations here in Silver Spring. And in this role, she facilitates discussions across different subject matters, as well as various levels of leadership across OMAO and NOAA. Now, I asked her to share, if you could provide any guidance to our NOAA in the Caribbean community, what would you want to share? And this was her response. So when she first applied, it was not necessarily well advertised, and she was disappointed that it was kind of a missed opportunity for the Caribbean community. So her advice is, if you are at all thinking about marine science policy, or even just curious, you should definitely apply. The fellowship is a great way to expand your background, gain valuable experience of the federal government, and a great way to expand your network. You can hear that there's a theme here, a reoccurring theme of this fellowship. And you will encounter other Canals Fellows throughout many different organizations and leadership levels across the country, especially within NOAA. It's a heavy NOAA experience as compared to other federal agencies. And this fellowship is just another tool that will help the Caribbean community advance collaboration across NOAA and Caribbean partners. So that was some insight we received from Jocelyn. And I have another one. We have Rosa Gonzalez. And she always had an interest in public service in the marine environment. And Rosa is on the call with us today. She wanted to understand how to translate her scientific background in developing policy and also work for NOAA as the agency that's most directly related to ocean research and regulations. When she applied, she was finishing her master's in biology at the University of Puerto Rico, and she was researching coral reef fish ecology. Again, not a policy background, but finding a way to work in that. And at the same time, she was also working as a marine educator for Puerto Rico Sea Grant. And the fellowship for her was a deciding point in her career. In her role, she had the opportunity to draft regulations for implementation of the Shark Conservation Act of 2010, something that I worked on amendments to in my current role. So connection there, working on, there's always a connection throughout the Canals Fellowship and through the alumni. Currently, she serves as the Environmental Compliance Coordinator for the U.S. Integrated Ocean Observation System, or IUS, program office. She is based in Maryland. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and she's really fortunate to, in this role, still work directly with Puerto Rico through various projects involving threatened and endangered species permitting, award processing, education, hurricane recovery, and marine debris strategic planning. To leave you with this, in general, fellowships are very competitive and spaces can be limited. If you have applied to this before or any other opportunities and you did not get in, don't be discouraged. She was selected on her second application to the fellowship. And, I will echo what she says here, reach out to former fellows for advice and get outside your comfort zone. I mentioned there are tons of former alumni, and everyone wants to give back to the program. When I was first thinking about applying and going through the process, I was connected with Catherine before I even knew I'd be working with her in the fellowship. And she helped, provide guidance and advice and really helped me through the process. So, reach out to your Sea Grant office and work with them to connect with alumni, because we all want to help, because it's such an incredible program. We just want to give back. So that's a high-level overview of student opportunities within NOAA and a little bit of a highlight from my year. I'm always happy to answer questions. I cannot talk enough about the Hollings and Canals Fellowship, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dami, and thank you for the year with the NOAA in the Caribbean and highlighting all these experiences. We do have questions for you. One was already answered by Catherine, and it's like can federal employees who are in the grad program apply? The reply is on the chat. Is like yes, but you basically you will probably have to give up your federal position to do the Canals Fellowship. And we do have a question with a follow-up question too. What has been your experience working on the Hill? Any take homes in terms of what has worked or what will capture the attention and interest of folks on the Hill? And there's a
That's a great question. Oh, there's a follow-up?
so you can answer first. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Um, I think that could be a whole presentation in and of itself. I think if I had to boil it down, um, if you can quantify things, that's going to be the number one take home when you're talking with staffers. Everyone's so busy on the Hill. There's so much that we want to talk about because we're so proud of our work. But stepping in their shoes and thinking if we're trying to create a piece of legislation or convince others that the work NOAA is doing is great, you have to have a different mindset and simplify things. The methodologies don't matter. I know as scientists, that's what we want to talk about, how we found this amazing, new species or how we figured out, how to predict a hurricane. What matters is what can we do with this information? How is it impacting the American people? Boiling it down to the outcomes, I think. But it truly has been a fascinating experience. Every time I go to the Hill, I learn something new. And I'm always trying to improve how we can convey our message. I'm not sure I can put in a single answer everything I've learned, but truly has been an eye-opening experience.
So a follow-up question from Brad is that his experience with the congressional hearings is that often there is more interest in hearing info or sound bites that can be used to support or use against certain partisan agendas. Did you experience this at all?
That's a good question. So I participated in, helped with 4 different congressional hearings on the fisheries side, bringing our science center directors and experts in the field based on the legislation. We're there to provide the best answers we can and explain from a technical standpoint whatever it is impacting that bill. If it's about red snapper, talking about our red snapper count and explaining why that count is done, what does it mean, what are the implications. But there's always a little bit of, hunting for a soundbite. Just the dynamics in Washington, D.C. It's always ever changing, and I will leave it at that. But we're there to provide as much information as we can, and oftentimes the information we provide ends up being used, and there's always a lot of follow-up that you don't necessarily see in the congressional briefing with questions for the record, where we're able to provide our scientific guidance, which is a whole other half of congressional hearings that we don't always see.
Thank you, Dami. Thank you for sharing those experiences. And we have a final comment here. Fernando Pavon says, thank you for sharing this experience, Dami. I had the pleasure to have a Canals Fellow on my staff, and he did a terrific job. Awesome. We have time for one more question for Dami, if anyone wants to ask.
I'm always happy to provide resources. I strongly encourage you to check out the Student Opportunities Database. That's going to be your best starting point to figure out where students or whether it's high school, undergraduate, graduate, postdocs. That's going to be the best place to find these opportunities.
You do have a final question. What are you doing next? He wants to stay in the Caribbean. No, we want her to stay here, but
I would love to stay here. I wish I knew. I'm still figuring it out. We'll see what is next. The beauty about the Canals Fellowship is I've met so many different people, and lots of people are trying to help me find opportunities and figure out where I want to go. And I just feel incredibly supported from this group and everyone else. So I don't know yet, but no matter what, I will still be tied in with this group and come to the meetings. And I should also mention that the next Knaus Fellow you all will be working with, her name is Eliza Thomas. She will be the new executive secretariat, and you will be working with her over the next year. But I will still be coming to all the meetings, so won't be the last time you see me.
Yeah, and a final thought from Helena is that just for information, if for anyone interested, even though we don't have a NOAA field office in Puerto Rico, if you can have a NOAA Fed employee host you in Puerto Rico, you can do it. You can do your internship here.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so I'll pass it back to you, Dami, for the rest of the meeting, and thank you for the great presentation to you and Ernesto.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, back to our agenda here. At this point, we want to just share a few announcements, and I'll be sure to copy these in the chat. The Caribbean Conservation Community of Practice meeting is coming up. That is from March 25th to 27th in St. Thomas, the University of Virgin Islands. If you have any questions, you can send them to this email here, putting that in the chat. We also have an upcoming webinar, Strategies to Reverse the Plastic Tide. That is going to be on February 11th at 4 p.m. AT. 3 p.m. ET and 10 a.m. Hawaii, and this will feature presentations from various organizations from Puerto Rico, Florida, and Hawaii that engage in preventative and regulatory efforts to mitigate marine debris. Presenters will highlight the use of policies, regulations, and initiatives to reduce plastic usage in our island communities. So I will copy that information. Oh, Yaritza is already on it. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Yaritza. She has kindly offered to help with that, and she's going to send the registration link here in the chat. Thank you, Yaritza. There's an upcoming workshop and training titled Caribbean Disaster Preparedness and Response Workshop, and this is followed by a resource advisor training. The overall theme is safety, health, and wellness prior to and during disasters, for example, extreme heat, hurricanes, tsunamis, oil spills, and the specific workshop objectives include creating awareness of common emerging disaster incidents in the Caribbean, improving communication and understanding of NOAA's tools among disaster responders in the Caribbean, and understand the resources available and best management practices when preparing for and responding to incidents. This is occurring March 3rd through 5th. Is the workshop portion, and March 5th and 6th is the training portion. Those dates are being shared in the chat now. This is happening in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and for more information or to RSVP, you can send an email to Kathy, and Yaritza is sharing that in the chat now. And at this point, we would love to turn it over to you all. If there's anything that you would like to share, if you have resources, trainings, this is the opportunity that we really open it up to our community group. And please, if you have anything to share, please speak up or put it in the chat. If not, that is okay. Yes.
Hi, Dami. Yes, I'd like to share something. Our team at the Caribbean Center for Rising Seas, as part of the Puerto Rico Science, Technology, and Research Trust, recently unveiled a little over a year's effort, putting together a documentary. Its title is in Spanish. It's still all in Spanish, but we're in the process of translating it to English. But in English, the title would be "When the Sea Reaches Us," and it's about the problem of sea level rise from many different points of view. It pulls together different voices, late career, mid career, early career, in different settings around Puerto Rico, and it's also based on a trip I did to Greenland the year before last, to understand how the impact of the melting glaciers is going to impact all of the world, but especially islands like Puerto Rico in the tropics, even though we're thousands of kilometers away. So I'm going to share with you on the chat the link. You can watch it on YouTube, but we're also um, um, organizing a screening tour. So if you're on island, we'd love to organize an opportunity to show it to your audience. It's, I think, a great educational tool to understand and talk about this challenge before it's too late, before there's very few opportunities or choices available to do something about it. And if you are beyond the shores of Puerto Rico, we'd also love to work on a screening, on a special screening. Perhaps one person from our team can join you online via a Zoom call or a Teams call or a go-to uh, call. So I welcome your input. It's free. It's a public service on behalf of the Puerto Rico Science, Technology, and Research Trust and the Caribbean Center for Rising Seas.
Rita.
Fernando, I'm just gonna jump in, and maybe if it works for you, if you want to present it on our March 21st meeting, you're welcome to do it and maybe talk a little bit about the Caribbean Center of Rising Seas. I think I was able to watch it. It's like a 10-minute documentary, right? It's pretty short.
It's You probably watched the
Uh,
trailer, which is about
okay.
4 minutes. The documentary runs for 50 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we might be able to. Well, we can talk to you later and see how we can fit it during our meetings. Thank you.
Catherine, you also have your hand raised.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I just have a couple of quick announcements I wanted to make. The first is the registration deadline for the Southeast and Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership has been extended to January 20th. This is a network of folks who work in the disaster and climate resilience space in the Southeast and Caribbean. The annual meeting is the first week of February. It's a really fantastic organization, and if you can attend, I highly recommend doing so. I just put the link in the chat that details the agenda and all things you need to know about that meeting. I also wanted to announce to the group that we're really excited to announce that NOAA is providing funding to Puerto Rico's Department of Health to run an extreme heat tabletop exercise. I'm going to provide a link here for the press release. This is a really important step to, as you all know, continue to prepare communities in the Caribbean to respond to extreme heat conditions, and also aligns really well with the priorities from the Caribbean Climate Adaptation Network that operates there in the region. So just wanted to make those announcements. So as always, if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else have, is there still, anyone else have anything they would like to add, ask? There's also follow-ups if you'd like to ask Ernesto any additional questions. We have a few minutes if anyone is interested.
I think there was actually a follow-up question for Ernesto. Ernesto, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Let me find it real quick. Or Brad, you can ask it if you want while I try to find it. Oh yeah, is there? Okay, we know African dust can suppress hurricane formation or strengthen it. Recently, I attended a lecture by a hurricane specialist who said that frequency and strength of these storms began significantly increase when we reduce air pollution. Apparently, the pollution particles acted as the dust, wondering if that is valid. I'm just going to put it back there in the chat so you can see it.
Yeah, so for half a tropical cyclone or tropical storm to become a hurricane, you need a very wet environment. So any kind of dry air combined with dust obviously inhibit the development of those showers or thunderstorms. So that is the reason why early in the season, especially June and July, it's not usual to see the development of hurricanes or tropical cyclones in the main developed region. It's because there is a lot of saran dust there, and it's the peak of the saran dust season that usually extend from mid-May all the way to mid-August. So obviously the desert, the Sahel and Saharan desert are expanding, sadly, and the outbreaks of saran dust, it's a little bit more frequent than before. There's some people are working in climatology, and a few papers there that talk about concentrations per longitude and also per month, and you can see how those things vary. But usually concentrates early in the season. I don't know. With climate change, we that makes stands a little bit farther away into August and September. We'll see. But as of now, yes, saran dust is the main inhibitor of tropical development, especially the first 2 months of the season.
So what about that premise that when there was less air pollution that could act similarly to the dust, that allowed increased development of hurricanes? Has that been looked at by the?
Yeah, I would say particles at times they serve as condensation nuclei. So it's basically a seed of rain drops. So if we have clear air, you don't get that phenomena occurring. So could be salt, could be other particles, contamination. But in terms of saran dust, it's hydrophobic most of the time. So that is not serving as the seed for raindrops, but also usually it's accompanied with a very dry layer of air between the 2 to 3 kilometers above ground. So I'm not a super expert on that, but I mean it's you need a wet environment. Anything that don't help in terms of raindrop development, in terms of the particle characteristic, will inhibit, or if it's a non-hydrophobic particle, will help to develop cloud, and then depending on the month of the season, you may encounter better conditions there in terms of less shear and obviously sea surface temperature hotter. But keep that question for the hurricane specialist next time in the next workshop. Hopefully I answered a little bit, but it's kind of specialized question.
Great. Thank you, Ernesto. With that, I don't think we have any additional questions. I'll give it another 10 seconds here. I don't think so. So as always, if you have anything you'd like to contribute to our newsletter, share over our listserv. It goes to over 700 people, both inside NOAA and outside NOAA. Please always send that to caribbeannews@noaa.gov. You can always subscribe to our newsletters. I sent that link earlier to make sure you are receiving those emails. Our next meeting is going to be on March 21st. And that will be from 10:30 a.m. to noon. I will put that here in our chat. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all for joining us. And if you know of other people that were not able to attend today but would like to see this recording, we'll follow up with that shortly as soon as it is uploaded to YouTube. So thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for being part of NOAA in the Caribbean. Thank you all.